Welcome to Breakthrough Success. I'm your host, Mark Roberti, CEO and founder of the Content Marketing Plaza, bringing you 3 new episodes each week where I and top-level guests teach you how to take your business to the next level and achieve your breakthrough. Now, if your big breakthrough is building a successful online business, I have the offer for you. If you want a free funnel created for you, email me, mark@markroberti.com. I do this for people who are not yet ClickFunnels users to welcome them into the system and give them a really nice funnel. So what we're going to talk about in this episode is how do we become a fit entrepreneur? Because our fitness really affects our productivity and what we're able to accomplish when we do our work. So today's guest who is going to join us today, he is a #1 best-selling author, speaker, and fitness evangelist. His passion is sharing fitness and anti-aging strategies in a straightforward, no-nonsense way that helps people to overcome their health and fitness challenges and achieve lifelong vitality. Now, he's developed simple habits that anyone, even overworked entrepreneurs who feel stretched too thin between work and family, so anyone can implement so that they are able to reverse disease, right the ship, lose weight, and feel great. Today's guest for episode 343 of the Breakthrough Success Podcast is none other than Jesse Walker. Jesse, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks a lot, Mark, and thanks a lot for that great introduction. I really appreciate that.
Jesse, I'm so happy to have you on the show. And as I've been realizing with a lot of guests lately, we met at the New Media Summit. And one of the gems that Jesse said right away, just to really set the tone here, is he came up in front of all of us and he said the top 10 death causes, like how they happen, they're all optional, whether it's obesity and all these other ones. But it's very interesting how they are optional, and taking this fit approach can really give you that longevity, which gives you the ability to make more impact. So definitely a lot to talk about. Before we do though, can you talk a little bit about why you got started with fitness and helping others get fit as well?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, with a lot of fitness professionals, maybe they've been into fitness their entire lives, and it's something they've been passionate about their entire lives, and they've sort of wanted to carry through. For me, fitness has been more of a struggle my entire life, and I feel like that's why I really identify really well with a lot of my clients. So for me, starting off very young, I was an overweight child. Now childhood obesity is at epidemic proportions, but back in the 70s when I was a kid, there weren't nearly as many of us. And so growing up, I really sort of struggled against that, and it was more about aesthetics, obviously, as a kid, because people make fun of you, when you're overweight and those sort of things. But growing up, I learned kind of how to control it, so I worked out a lot, I watched what I ate, but it was always a struggle. And then by the time I hit my 30s, I really started losing that struggle and really putting the weight on. Mm. So what really made me make a change was I had my daughter. My daughter was born when I was 43, which makes me an old father. And at the time, I was obese, I had high blood pressure, I was pre-diabetic, had chronic inflammation, and all sorts of illnesses, low testosterone, I mean, you name it. And I'd had surgery for tendon transplants, all kinds of stuff, because I hadn't been taking care of my body, even though I'd been struggling, I'd been trying, but not doing a very good job. But really, she woke me up, because I started thinking, well, what's going to happen when she's 20 or she's 25? I'm going to be in my 70s or turning 70, and what kind of shape am I going to be in? Am I going to be able to walk her down the aisle when she's 30? Am I going to be here? Am I going to be able to walk? And so when I started to make these sort of jumps into the future, thinking about what's really going to happen to me, that's when I got serious about figuring out what I could do to fix my health. Because what you brought up was important. Most of the ailments, if not all of the ailments that I had, were completely optional. It was up to me whether or not I was pre-diabetic. It was up to me whether or not I had heart disease. It was up to me if I had high blood pressure. All those things were based on choices I had made. And from that point on, I learned how to make different choices, and I was able to reverse all those negative health effects and get myself into shape.
And it's really interesting how you attached a strong why to making the change. One thing I remember, Tony Robbins, he was making, I want to say like $30,000 a year. And then he had his first child, and he's like, wow, I really got to start hustling a lot more now, something like that. And then all of a sudden he became wealthy as he is now, but it was having that child that really ignited him to achieving that success. So I definitely thought of that when you were telling that story of how you want to be there for all of your daughter's major moments. So find a really strong why that is bigger than yourself, and you can see those kinds of changes. And I feel like there are a lot of people who they're listening to this or watching the video and they're saying, I want to get fit. I understand it's important, but I don't have any time. And we talked about earlier how these entrepreneurs are spread so thin between work and family. And now you're asking them to throw in fitness. So how can we find the time to get the fitness in?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And that was one of the biggest challenges I had. I came from the automotive industry. I was working 50, 60 hours a week. It was absolutely nuts. But what you end up finding, what I do with my clients as well, is we will take a look at their entire day. And we'll break down what's happening during the entire day. And then we'll figure out how much time we really have to put towards fitness. But let's say even before you do any of that stuff, just one simple tip I'll give all entrepreneurs out there. I use a productivity trick called the Pomodoro technique. You familiar with it?
Yeah, it's a great one.
Yeah, so it's really simple, but the great thing about it is you set 25 minutes of focused activity where you focus on whatever your project is, and then you take a 5-minute break. Now, the cool thing is you can take those 5-minute breaks to incorporate a little bit of activity during the course of your day. Because one of the reasons that we gain more weight or our metabolism slow down as we get older is because we become less active. So if you use that Pomodoro technique, it will effectively give you 10 minutes every single hour in 2 5-minute chunks that you can get up and you can do something active. Whether that activity is just sitting there doing chair squats where you just sit and you back up from your desk and you do some chair squats, or you go out and you walk around the block, or if you're in a place where they have stairs and you climb the stairs. There are so many different little things that you can do during the course of the day. It doesn't take any more time at all. It's just instead of sitting there doing nothing. And then people go, well, yeah, but I'm going to lose 10 minutes an hour. But you will find, as you know, with the Pomodoro technique or any focus technique like that, you actually become more productive because then you get to come back refreshed and you're able to focus more. So that is one thing just right off the bat that people can do that will not take up any more of their time, but will put them on the track to better health. Because really, it's about creating habits as opposed to me giving them a program and saying, do this. It's about creating habits they'll do daily. And that's the trick.
Yeah, I really like that Pomodoro technique. A lot of people recommend it. One of the things I will say about that is now I exercise a lot, and people have different ways of exercising. Some people are more casual. Some people, they go a lot deeper into it. So for the Pomodoro, you're exercising for 10 minutes an hour based on that breakup. It doesn't have to be strenuous. It doesn't have to be something that breaks a sweat. Now, for some people, you may want to have that sweat, but I can see some people saying, if I do this like every 10 minutes every hour, I'm going to be sweaty. I'm going to need a shower. So if you do things that, if that's what you're thinking right now, if you do things that aren't that intensive, like just basic stretches, you can get some of the benefits and not sweat and feel like you need a shower.
100%. Now, I'm not saying that is all you need to live your best life. I'm saying if you have no time and you want somewhere to start, that's a place to start. Just to at least get in the habit so that every single day, because really it's a mindset shift. So it's another thing I do with my coaching clients, because a lot of workout and fitness programs tend to just focus on the physical part of it. But in order to achieve lifelong health and vitality, there's a mindset shift that has to happen. And you instead have to change from the person that I was, and I was a person that was struggling to be healthy. And instead of being that person, you become the person that just is a healthy person. And that person that is a healthy person has those habits like yourself. I think you run, an hour a day or something?
Yeah, at least.
Yeah. So, that's a habit for you. So this is who you are. You're a person that absolutely does that. So this is just a path to start to develop that healthy habit. But I wholly believe if you really want to make a real difference in your quality of life, especially going in your 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s and on, you need to make a deeper commitment to fitness. And so once you dive deeper in there and you look at what you're doing during the course of the day, You make sure you carve out that time and you make it a priority, because you're a very busy person, but you still have time to run for more than an hour. A lot of CEOs of Fortune 500 companies are very, very busy, but they still find the time to work out and they're still very productive. And people need to understand that.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, there's some of those same guys who they'll say, like, it's essential for me. I mean, Jack Dorsey, he walks from his house to Twitter because that gives him his fitness. And it's like an hour-long walk that, you know, if you drive there, maybe like 10 or 15 minutes, but he chooses to walk extra because it gives him time to think. It gives him that fitness. So it's definitely possible for anyone to find the time. So with that in mind, like the Pomodoro is just a start, but if you are able to carve out an hour each day where you're doing fitness, it's definitely going to have a much bigger impact. So what do you think really prevents a lot of people from starting? I know we talked about mindset. So I wonder if we could talk a little bit about that and just combating maybe some of the beliefs that are blocking us right now.
Okay, sure. I think the biggest thing that keeps people from starting is the why. So there's the time factor, but the time factor sort of goes away a little bit if the why is strong enough. Because what happens is your priorities are different. If your priorities are, listen, why do you become an entrepreneur? You become an entrepreneur because you want a better life for yourself and maybe you want a better life for your family. That's the reason you become an entrepreneur. So you become so focused on all the activities that are important for being productive as an entrepreneur that you say, I don't have the time to work out. Well, what happens when you start to shift that focus a little bit and realize that if I want a better life for myself and my family, my health is the single most important factor. That's going to make the biggest difference. So the reason people don't get started is because they don't, in their minds, they don't see that that is really the most important thing they need to focus on, because without their health, they can't be productive. I mean, forget about it. If you're laying in bed and you're suffering from cancer or whatever it is, and you can't move, you can't function, how are you going to make money for your family even to take care of them? And then even if you have all this money, how can you go enjoy it? So I think that is the biggest, I mean, time is always the biggest reason why people don't start. But if they would realize they always have time for the things they prioritize is all I'm trying to say. They have time to watch Game of Thrones, you know, so there is time to exercise.
Yeah. And just on a note on that, like for watching any show, if you watch it while exercising, that could set up a good habit, because for a lot of people, like Game of Thrones, for instance, that could be a really solid habit where at that time when the show's on that you like to watch, you're down there watching it. But if you tune in some fitness at the same time, you are incorporating a good habit with the watching TV or something like that. So definitely something to think about, intertwining those together. One of the things that I have seen in people who exercise, not all people, but there are some people who it takes a while for them to start, but then they start, they're doing it, they're exercising every day, but then they stop. They just stop doing it. So I like if you're listening to this or watching the video and you get really excited and you exercise for a week and then you stop, I mean, it's not a lifelong change. So how can we, once we start, continue without stopping?
Well, that's a good question. And that goes right back to the mindset. So we continue things that become habitual because that is the person that we are. And let me explain, what I mean by that. Again, you run every single day because the person that you are is a person that is a healthy person that runs every single day. You're not somebody that wants to run every day. You're not somebody that I'm going to try to stay healthy, so I'm going to do this, because if you were that person, if something came up, you wouldn't do your run. So there needs to be a mindset shift, and that's what had to happen for me. And the mindset shift is I am no longer a person that is trying to do this. Now, based on what I do on a daily basis, what my habits are, how I am, who I am, I'm a person that just does this. I'm a person that's just healthy, period. And once you have that mindset shift, then everything comes into play. For instance, if you are a mother, okay, there's a mindset shift that happens when you have that child. All right, you become a nurturing person. You have to. That's the person you change to. It isn't like you can do it for 5 days and then after 5 days, stop being a mother. All right. You identify now, you are now a mother. So you do those things, period, in the story. You didn't have time before you were a mother. But guess what? Now you're a mother and you are making time to do these things because that's the person you are now. Mm-hmm. Exercise has to be the same way. And so, yes, if you're the sort of person that decides they want to exercise, first off, look at why. Are you exercising because you want to have six-pack abs? Six-pack abs are great. I love having them. It's an awesome thing to have. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, who cares? How often are you walking around without a shirt on, you know? It is great when you go to the beach, but other than that, it doesn't really matter. What really matters is how you feel and how you can function and how you're keeping chronic disease at bay and how you show up for your family. These are all the things that really matter. And when you focus on those things and you focus on how those are the things you lose if you don't go to the gym that day, you don't spend your 15 or 20 minutes doing some exercises. If those are the things you lose besides six-pack abs, you're also more likely to do it.
And one great thing that Jesse said in there is that we distinguish the difference between saying that you want to be something or are going to be something versus I am something. Using my example, like I am a runner. Like that's how I would identify myself. I wouldn't say I'm trying to get healthy, so I'm going to run.
Right.
Because then there's so much interpretation for that. If I learned that maybe, let's say, upper body stuff is healthier than running, I'll just shift to that instead of running. And then if I see another article that says lunges all day, I'll shift to that. So it's good to really identify with something instead of like trying to do something, identify with it. And that's definitely make the time a lot easier to find in your day. And I know we've been talking about habits this whole time. I mean, I know it's like the focus has been on fitness, but the underlying foundation for this has been habits. So correct. I'm wondering if you can share with us some of your habits you've developed that you would say are essential for your success.
Sure, absolutely. We already talked about the Pomodoro technique, but intermittent fasting, I think, was the single most important habit that I started doing that made the biggest change for me. And I know intermittent fasting has been a big buzzword, for the last couple of years, but the reason is because it is super effective, super simple, doesn't require any thought. You're not starving. Are you familiar with how intermittent fasting, I'm sure you're familiar with intermittent fasting, how it works?
Yeah, just like not eat for a few days.
Well, yeah, don't do it for a few days, but yeah, so I'll explain it just really briefly. I do it on a daily basis. And what I'll do is I will stop eating normally around 9 or 10 p.m. and then I'll start back 16 to 18 hours later. And then my window for eating is now 6 to 8 hours. Okay? So intermittent fasting has a tremendous amount of benefits. We've been using fasting for benefits for thousands of years. All right. Some people use it for ritual, for religion, but a lot of other people just use it just for health purposes. And again, it's been used for thousands of years. And we found that actually taking in less food increases longevity. It does some cool things like cellular cleansing called autophagy, which is basically when your cells go and they eat the dead cells, which is pretty cool. It helps manage your blood sugar. So it helps you reverse things like type 2 diabetes, helps lower inflammation. So fasting has a lot of benefits, but the huge benefit for weight loss is very simple. If you only have 6 to 8 hours to eat, you will typically eat less in the course of the day than you would if you ate for 16 hours. It's just common sense. Now, a lot of people worry about, well, am I going to be starving during this period of time? The answer is no. You typically get hungrier after you start eating. So I don't know if you've experienced this. You got up in the morning, you had some waffles, because I love waffles, or you got up and you had some cereal, and then an hour and a half later, you're hungry, right? So then you eat something else. An hour and a half, 2 hours later, you're hungry again, and so forth. Okay, that's what happens. Well, with intermittent fasting, I'm not going to be stupid and say, well, there's never any hunger, because that's not true. But it is significantly less than you would imagine, and it's not typically as bad as it is once you start eating during that day. So it is a very easy habit for people to start. They stop eating. Maybe they stop eating at 8 or 9 o'clock whenever they want to stop. They go to sleep. and then they try to fast for a 16-hour period, and then 8 hours they eat virtually whatever they want within reason. They don't go scarf down a pizza. And they will find out if they just eat the way they're normally used to eating, they will eat less calories and they will naturally lose weight.
That is really interesting. I mean, I've done the whole fasting. Like, I've actually fasted for some days, like never multiple in a row, but I fasted for one day because when you fast, like, that gives your body the ability to recover, and
Yes.
it gives your body the ability to cleanse itself, while it can't be doing that if you keep eating all day. So I do find days to fast, but the intermittent one, that approach seems like a lot more manageable than fasting for multiple days, because you do know there is a closer light at the end of the tunnel. And
Exactly.
you can sleep a lot of it off too. I mean, if you get to bed at 8, I mean, 16 hours, like, we're easily talking about 8 hours down
Right.
if you're sleeping at the average level. So definitely really great insights there. I know you are a best-selling author, so I'm wondering if you could share with us a book that you believe would have a positive impact on us.
Besides my own?
I mean, be sure to share your own, but obviously,
yeah.
like, one more also.
Yeah. So my own is called Fit Beyond 40, and they can get that free at fitbeyond40book.com. One of the books that's helped me the most is a book called Executive Toughness. It's by Dr. Jason Selk, and it is an amazing book that basically just teaches you about productivity altogether. But there are a lot of quotes in there, or a lot of parts in there that focus on fitness as well.
Jesse, thank you for sharing with us those great book recommendations. Those will be in the show notes. markcuberti.com/E343. We'll also throw in some of my books as well for anyone who is interested in learning how to win at content marketing. So before we wrap up this episode, Jesse, I've asked you a few questions throughout our time together, but what do you believe is one question that we need to be asking ourselves more often?
How can I do enough that I can get the greatest amount of time with the people I love and care about?
Wow.
What is it that I can do right now to get me more time with them? That's the question I think we should ask ourselves.
Jesse, that is such a great question for us to all think about, because we become entrepreneurs because we want a better life for ourselves, and health is part of that. But where's that all leading? And Jesse
Yeah.
really hits it home with the family and the important people to us. So really great question to cap off this episode. Don't forget to get your copy of Fit Beyond 40 at fitbeyond40.com, fitbeyond40book.com, which will again be in the show notes, markcuberti.com/E343. But Jesse, once again, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be on Breakthrough Success.
Sure. And one more thing. If anybody's interested in one-on-one coaching, they can visit me at fitbeyond40.life, and they can check that out. I'm happy to answer any questions there, because I do provide one-on-one coaching to help people reach their goals.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely.